And what's up, everybody? How are y'all doing out there on this Monday evening? Thanks for joining us for session 77 of Caniac Sessions. I'm Griff.
I'm Brandyn.
And AB is not with us tonight, as you can see. He's got some other things to tend to, but we're here anyway to talk about the Eastern Conference Final that gets underway tomorrow night, 8 o'clock p.m. puck drop from Raleigh. I can't wait. Now we have an opponent after last night's, I don't know what you want to call that, embarrassment in Toronto.
Yeah, that was not much of a hockey game.
No, it wasn't. It was through like one period, and then the wheels fell off.
Yeah.
But, well, actually, it really wasn't. Actually, Joseph Wall was keeping Toronto in the game through the first period because Florida was just dominant.
Yeah, Toronto, it was kind of a bend but don't break situation for them already in the first period, and by the second period, they broke. Actually, they shattered into a million pieces.
Yeah. So, so we're here to talk about that, to get started off right before this series kicks off tomorrow night. Before we do, first things first, if you're joining us on YouTube, go ahead and go down, hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you're not subscribed. I was looking at our analytics earlier today, and half of the people that listen to this stream or session or whatever you want to call it, half of you are not subscribed. Only 50%, actually like 51 of the views were subscribers. So if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please do. Okay. It helps us out, with the algorithms and all that, all that stuff. So, the bigger we get, the more motivated we are to do this. So, help us out, subscribe. And if you do enjoy it, you like what you hear, hit the notification bell so you don't miss future sessions. We plan on doing this, at least for the foreseeable future, all the way through the rest of the playoff run, however long that lasts, into the off season and into next season. So, take care of all that. If you're watching on X, give us a like, give us a retweet, tell somebody about us. We are also at Caniac Sessions, promotional partners with SeatGeek. If you create an account with SeatGeek.com, you can log on, use promo code Caniac Sessions. That's one word, no space between Caniac and Sessions, and get $20 off your first ticket purchase. So take advantage of that. Helps all of us, you, us, and SeatGeek. All right. Real quick, finally, last BTS, not the band. He's with us. He says yellow. He got the first comment today. He hadn't been with us last couple times.
No, he hasn't.
But he's here, so maybe he's on vacation or something. We got Pops in the chat. Says, "What's up, crew? What's up, Pops?" All Canes Network is here. He says, "What's up?" And then he says, "I really hope we don't go to overtime tomorrow." Yeah, we've all got a little bit of PTSD from that game last year, don't we?
Yeah.
Pop says we were 1-2 against both the Caps and Panthers in the regular season, but faced Bobrovsky. If Freddie continues his game, what do you see as key for the Canes this series? Actually, we were 2-1-1 against the Caps this season.
And when Florida played us, that was way before the team we have now. That's one thing to really keep in mind with that. That was that during that stretch of time where we were playing really bad and they killed us on that back-to-back.
Yeah, we had a home and home back-to-back with travel. Of course, so did the Panthers. But we had Spencer Martin. Didn't he start both of those games?
I believe so. In the second one, what's his name? That guy you really like with the 1,000 save percentage. I'm blanking on his name right now. Yaniv Peretz went in, I think, in the second period of the second game back-to-back. So when we went to Florida and actually used an NHL goaltender against them, we won in somewhat of a controversial. Why it was controversial, I don't know, because I was at that game in Florida, as everyone knows. And they were saying that Kotkaniemi purposely ran into Bobrovsky and all this other stuff, even though Tkachuk tripped him on the way in there and then held him down by the ear loop of his helmet in the crease. But they ignored that.
Yeah, those those regular season games against the Panthers, I don't really put much stock into them because of our goaltending. Freddie was out. Like I think that was after Kochetkov had the concussion, and then we were down to that was before Dustin Tokarski was
signed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was in on a PTO in Chicago. He got those back-to-back shutouts. Anyway, revisit a little bit of the season. But yeah, I don't going back to that comment. Yeah, we'll get to it about what we see as the key for the Canes. Yeah, we'll get there. BTS says he's been offline for a while. He's trying to get back in the groove. All right. Well, we're glad you're back, dude. I was a little worried last time when you didn't pop up.
Yeah, because you're normally the first one in here.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. So yeah. Florida Panthers, nothing, no surprise here. I thought before the playoffs started that to get to the Cup final, if we were, it would have to go through Florida. I fully expected them to come out of the Atlantic. Well, let me back up. If they got through Tampa, I expected them to come out of the Atlantic. I didn't really think Toronto was serious, even though they ended up being a little more serious, and I thought they took Florida to Game 7. But I just always assumed that it was going to be Florida, because they're good, they're experienced. They won the Cup last year. They know how to get it done in the postseason. There's just no denying that. They've had a good playoffs. I mean, they made quick work of Tampa in the first round. What was that? That was a gentleman's sweep as well, 4-1.
Correct.
Went to round 2, went down 0-2 to Toronto to start the series, lost both games on home ice, and still took it to a Game 7 and won the series. And it seems like, if you've watched them play throughout the playoffs, it seems like every game they're just getting better and better as the playoffs go along, especially throughout the Leaf series. I felt like they had a rough start, and then just every game they got better. And then that stuff last night was just a masterclass by Florida. I mean, that's all you can say about it. So, familiar opponent. We know what they are. We know who they are. We know how they play. And there's just no secrets on both sides. So it's going to come down to who can force the other team to play how they want to play. That's basically it. Brandon, what are your initial thoughts about the Panthers?
So one thing to consider with this, had Carolina played Toronto, those games would have been very asymmetric. Those teams are very, very different. When we're talking about playing Florida, there's a lot of similarities there. The big difference, and Carolina has this big difference with just about every team, is shot volume. However, Florida throws pucks on net a lot more than either of the two teams that Carolina has played thus far in the playoffs. So there will probably still be a shot volume advantage for Carolina, but not nearly as big as it's been for the last two series. So that's one thing to keep in mind there. They also play a very defense-first type of system. They're not all about the suffocating man-on-man stuff, but they are a very defense-first team. They tend to do it through physicality. Bobrovsky, we already know what he's capable of. So my initial thoughts on it are you're going to see a series where these two teams mirror each other in a lot of situations. I think you're going to see a lot of sequences of chances traded at both ends, quick transition, chances traded at both ends over and over and over. And Florida, for as big as they are, they're also fast. But Carolina is also fast, probably a little bit of an edge on the speed there as well. So I think that you're going to see a very evenly matched series and not too different stylistic hockey. The biggest difference probably being the physicality that Florida brings. Good news for Carolina is they proved in the last series that they can outmuscle a team that was supposed to outmuscle them. But Florida is a much heavier and much more physical team than Washington. If Tom Wilson comes out of the lineup in Washington, their reputation for being a physical team kind of goes with it. Florida, that's not the case. They got a multitude of physical guys on that team. They've got Sam Bennett, Tom Wilson, the list goes on. And Sasha Barkov's probably the best two-way center in the game since Bergeron retired. So I'm not going to pretend that it's not an uphill battle for Carolina, but they can win.
Absolutely. Yeah, they can absolutely win, or they could absolutely be swept again. I just, it's just one of those, like you said, it's so evenly matched. The teams are so similar to each other. It literally is going to come down to, and this is how it was 2 years ago too. It's going to come down to, I mean, I hate to say it, but luck in a way. Who gets what bounce per night? And the series can shift game to game. I mean, I don't know. It's just going to come down to who can basically force the other one to play their style or play into what it is, they want them to, and both teams are basically trying to do the same thing. So, I'm going to pull up the lines here from, that way we can kind of see who may be matched up with who. And these lines that I'm going to pull up here are based on the last time these two teams were on the ice. So the Florida lines are based on last night, and the Carolina lines are based on Game 5 of the Capitals. So I'll go ahead and pull these up. And sorry about all the ads here. I'm pulling this straight off of Daily Face-Off. So, but yeah, these are the forward lines for the Panthers. A lot of talent up front, deep roster, especially through their third line. But you can see, so Evan Rodriguez playing up top with Sasha Barkov. He's bounced around a little bit, but I was looking at some advanced stats earlier, and ever since they moved Rodriguez up to that top line, their expected goals percentage is like 77% in the time that they've played together, and that's sick. So I'm assuming that's the line we're going to see. That second line, you can just see it there. Carter Verhaeghe, fantastic player. Sam Bennett, we know about him, and no man that needs no introduction, Matthew Tkachuk. And this third line here, so this third line, the Lundell, Luosterainen, and Marchand line destroyed the Leafs. This line right here is basically responsible for the series win. Like, they were so good. They're and Brad Marchand led all players on both teams in points in this series. So that line right there, which I'm assuming will draw probably our second line, the Kotkaniemi, or not Kotkaniemi, the Roslovic, Taylor Hall, and Logan Stankoven line. I'm assuming that's who they'll draw. And, I think probably the Stahl line will take the Barkov line, and Aho's line will take the Bennett line, I'm assuming. And then our fourth line will go against our fourth line. So, yeah, we'll see. And I'll go ahead and pull up here the Carolina lines, the forward lines anyway. Something to watch, though, is I don't know how long Jack Roslovic hangs there on that second line if they are drawing, the third line of the Panthers. If we see that second line start struggling against that Lundell line, we may see Kotkaniemi swap back up to that second line, I'm assuming. And there's potential that we may even see Mark Jankowski sub back into the lineup after he's fully ready to go. But if you're looking at these two forward lines, Brandon, what do you think as far as matchups go, and anywhere that you see an advantage? Because if you just look at it on paper, right? If you look at it, first line, Svech, Aho, and Jarvis, compared to Florida's first line, Rodriguez, Barkov, Reinhart. I feel like those two lines are pretty. Are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right, my screens just went black here. Hold on, let's see if they pop back up.
Did you have like a really quick loss of power?
No, I don't think so.
Because it looked like all your lights flickered off for a split second in the background and then came back up. That's what it looked like to me.
It's because my lights. Here we go. It's because my lights were my computer screens.
Oh, okay.
All right, I'm back. But yeah, if you look at the first line here, and then you look at the Canes' first line, I don't feel like there's an advantage either way. I think both of those lines are pretty, on paper anyway, pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
And jump in if you disagree with anything I'm saying.
So when it comes to the whole 1 through 4 lines thing, Rod always says that he doesn't number his lines, and we know that that's not entirely accurate. However, when it comes to this, you only have one definitive top line, and then the bottom 9, I think you can kind of really throw in a mixture here and everything like that. So that top line, I hope that they leave it alone because it's been our best one in terms of like production and everything like that. Now, as far as against the Panthers, I hope Jankowski is at least ready to go by game 3. So that's no disparagement to Rosovic at all. This is what's going to be weird. I think the most important line for Carolina is going to be the stall line. I think that's the one that's going to have the biggest impact on this series if it goes Carolina's way. So as far as how evenly matched the forward group is, I don't think it's super evenly matched. I think Florida's got an advantage there, and I think Carolina doesn't really get an advantage until you start looking at the fourth line. Even if that were, say, Kotkaniemi not there and it was Jankowski instead, for example, or Rosovic, for who any one of those guys, because our top 3 centers are Aho, KK, and Jordo. Yeah. So I would say that as far as a bottom 9, or as far as overall forward structure, I think Florida still got the advantage on that. The one thing I feel like we have a little bit better than them is the Stahl, Martinook, and Carrier line being a pure shutdown line.
Right.
Hahowever, them adding Brad Marchand in, flip back over to the Florida one, please. Them adding Brad Marchand in there with Eetu Luostarinen and Anton Lundell, he was an instant fit. They had chemistry immediately. That's what makes that third line so deadly, is all 3 of those guys play a very similar game. They have a very similar style, and they already, like, the way they click so fast, it was like they already knew who – it's like they had been playing together for years the way that they clicked. So there's not really any way I can say Carolina has an advantage in the top 9. I would say the biggest advantage Carolina has is the ability to mix the forwards up when they need to and put them in the blender and come out with a better combination. When I look at this, about the only change I can see them making is maybe making a swap like, say, Marchand with Evan Rodriguez. And that's about it. And I said the same thing about Washington. There's not a bunch of different ways they could configure their forwards to counteract Carolina. Carolina, on the other hand, there's a bunch of different options there because it's a much more even distribution with the capability that they have. Defense-wise, them adding in Seth Jones, he's actually playing the best he's played in years. I have to give him that. I still think our defense is a little bit better, but the forward group, that's going to be a hard thing for Carolina to overcome.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you. Let me just get this back. Just a second. Let me pull these lines back up here. I had to swap a screen. I'm having some weird glitches going on with some of my screens here. So, yeah, give me just a second. All right, there we go. It's back. So yeah, moving on to defense, right? So we look at the Florida defensive pairings. We are familiar with Gustav Forsling, Aaron Ekblad, Nico Mikkola, Seth Jones, Nate Schmidt, and Dmitry Kulikov. What a playoff Seth Jones is having. He has kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Found himself again, I guess, in Florida so far. And he had a lot of big time moments in that Toronto series, and really last night he was for my money he had 2 goals. That second goal I thought was a goal.
Mm-hmm.
They
I don't know why
it,
they waved that off.
Well, yeah, they said it was goaltender interference, but I don't really know. I thought he got shoved into the crease, so I'm not sure why that came off. However, I'm fine with it. But real quick before we keep going here, I want to get some comments. Rich, I don't know who Rich is, but he says go Panthers. We don't put up with that in here, Rich. So let's see what else he's got. Carolina in 5. They went 1-3 in the series without the Panthers having Marchand. LOL weapons grade. Okay. I'm gonna give you one more.
Get him.
Well, I'm gonna give you one more chance, Rich. If you want to hang out and talk, like
you might as well go ahead and get rid of him, dude. Look at his third comment.
Well, the team doesn't know you exist. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's just a troll. Get rid of him.
Bye-bye, Rich. All right, he's gone.
I wish I had I wish I had so much time on my hands I could go into random other team streams and start chirping.
You know what though?
What's that like?
That's the closest that I can get to like a purge.
Yeah. I just know this guy's like saying no Marchand, and we had Spencer Martin in net for 2 of those 3 games.
Yeah, whatever. All right. Let's see. Back to the defense. So defensive pairings, you can look at them. You can see them there for Florida. And then the Canes defense. We all know this. It's got Nikishin in there beside Orlov because that's how the line started last game, or the pairings anyway. And then they kind of had this rotation going through the defense. But as far as Jalen Chatfield goes, Rod said today that he's questionable for tomorrow, and they're going to kind of see how he feels in the morning. He said he would like to get him a practice before he returned to the lineup. However, the team is skating for a morning skate in the morning. I think it's at 10 o'clock or 10:30. So if he's good to go, we will watch in the morning and see who's on the ice. But this very well, I mean, they could go to this configuration again. I know that Scott Morrow drew in today for Chatfield, and they had Nikishin skating as an extra. To me, that means a couple things, or well, 1 or 2 things. And I was just kind of thinking about it. I really don't believe that Scott Morrow will play.
I don't either.
I just don't think Rod trusts him enough, to throw him in there. So to me, the fact that Morrow was skating alongside, I believe it was Gostisbehere. I believe they had Walker bumped up with Orlov, and then Gostisbehere with Morrow. To me,
and then
what
they had
Go ahead.
Oh, they had Nikishin with Stillman. So that's one of the reasons I didn't read a whole lot into those pairs, because lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, that was an indication that maybe Chatfield is planning on playing, because you can plug Morrow in there, by Gostisbehere, and you can just do a 1-for-1 swap tomorrow. And Chatfield and Ghost played together 2 years ago in the postseason, and Sean Walker has been excellent and can absolutely play with Dmitry Orlov. So, and then, putting Chatfield down in the third pairing, you can limit his minutes a little bit. And so that's why I think that maybe they know he's going to be good tomorrow, and they can do it just a 1-for-1 from, in Morrow's position. So that's what it looked like to me. But if that's not the case, if Chatfield really isn't playing tomorrow, and Rod's not just, not showing his hand, then I would expect Alexander Nikishin to draw in, just like they did in Game 5 against the Capitals. So
yeah, if these are the pairings that go out against Florida, especially at home, I'm not upset. I know that there's like this religiosity about having a left-handed and right-handed defenseman on every single pair, and that's not a thing that's exclusive to Rod. Most coaches do their best to maintain that sort of configuration. In this case, though, Dima's really good at playing the right side of the ice. We've seen him do it before. Like that pair he was on with Shea last season, I think that looks really good. I think that's a great way for Nikishin to learn too, because then, he played most of his minutes with Ghost in the last game, whereas Dima speaks his language quite literally. That negates a lot of those language barrier issues right off the hop. And then the best part is you can leave the other two pairs as they've been all season with Walker and Ghost on one, Slavin and Burnsy on the other. So if this rolls out tomorrow, I'm not one bit upset about it. And from watching the footage of Nikishin that I clipped, his gaps were getting a little bit better as the game went on. By the second period, he looked a lot better. I think he would be fine in that position.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he'd be a good, good presence on the ice against Florida too. You never know. Let's see here. So overall defense. I mean, I think, if we're giving the forward edge to Florida, I really think Carolina. I don't think defense, as far as defense goes, I don't think anybody can match up or compete with our blue line. I think we have the best in the league. I mean, Dallas is pretty stout, but of the 4 remaining teams, I'd put our group up against anyone's, to be honest, especially in terms of team defense.
I agree. When you're talking collectively between the forwards and the defense and how well they collectively defend, I'm taking Carolina on that 10 times out of 10. Now, one thing that I did want to mention here, when it comes to the 5-on-5 stuff and everything like that, one of the things that's going to be really interesting to see with this, it's not going to be so much the fact of how the lines are. It's going to be some of the individual matchups, because for every player we have in a role, Florida has a player in a very similar role. For example, Jacob Slavin and Gustav Forsling, left-handed, shut down, top pair guys. They don't do the power play, but they kill penalties. You've got that there with them. Aho, Barkov, all situations, 200-foot centers don't put up a groundbreaking amount of offense, but can do so in every individual situation. Reinhart, Jarvis, that's going to be another. Individual matchups, I think, are going to be what's dissected more over the course of this series and when it's over than when looking at the lineup collectively. And I think that just kind of is because of how similar these two teams are.
Yeah, agree. I'm just going to go through here before we move on, see if there's any more comments that we can address. AB's in the chat.
Yeah.
If AB can be in the chat, then AB can be on the screen.
Well, he just sent me a picture of something.
Oh, okay. Maybe not then.
Yeah, I see what he's attending to. It's very time consuming.
So Pops here says he believes we can play with them physically. He said, I believe we'll have to be extremely tight defensively in front of our net. I'd agree with that. It's not really playing against them physically that I'm worried about. I'm just going to be flat out honest. I'm worried about cheap shots.
Yeah.
We saw Sam Bennett knock Anthony Stolarz out of the Toronto series. Now, whether there's a debate to be had whether or not the puck did it first, right? Did the puck give him a concussion when it hit him in the head? That may be. However, Sam Bennett skated into the crease and put an elbow in the back of his head. This is flat out.
Intentionally.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm... Go ahead.
The funny thing about that to me was when people were saying, oh, well, when he was interviewed by the media, he said that he didn't do it. And I'm like, okay, so did O.J. Simpson. That doesn't change anything. Like, it doesn't get more blatantly obvious that was on purpose. Now, did he mean to hurt him? Maybe not. But you don't chicken wing out like that and get somebody in the back of the neck and not mean to do it, whether you're just trying to rattle his cage or you're actually trying to injure him. That happens either. There's no way you can quantify that as an accident. He didn't lose his footing. Nobody pushed him in. That was not an accident.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I'm worried about injury. I'm worried about, intentional acts. Let me go off of this. Move this. Here we go. So yeah, I'm if we look, if you go even back to the Tampa series that Florida played in, I mean, Ekblad got suspended for an illegal hit. then who? And that was to who? That was to Brandon Hagel, right?
Yeah.
The elbow to the face or whatever that was. And then Nico Mikkola could have caught a suspension too. He didn't.
I don't know how Mikkola didn't get suspended.
Absolutely. So you're looking at 3 series changing injuries inflicted by the Florida Panthers in 2 rounds. To Brandon Hagel, he didn't finish out the Tampa series. I don't think he played in that last game, did he? Game 5 or 4?
That's my recollection. He did not.
I don't believe he did. And then Stolarz, right? Stolarz was playing great for Toronto. Not that Joseph Wall is he can hold his own, but when you knock out and if that happens to us, if they were to run the crease and knock Freddie out of the series, which almost happened in the first round against the Devils, I just don't feel good about our backup. I don't feel good about Kochetkov coming in, haven't played for a month hardly, and that closeout game against Jersey.
Ooh,
we won, but it was what we spotted them. 2 goals?
3.
That's right. 3.
Yeah, we were down 3-0 in the first period and came back and won it in overtime. And
that's right.
We're not going to get away with that against Florida. If Florida goes up 3-0 on us at any point, we're cooked. That's it. I mean, we saw what they do when they have a lead already.
Yeah.
So, and it's like every time they score a goal, they just get more and more confident, and then they start laying the body more and more. That they demoralize teams that they play against. Not too dissimilar from what Carolina does. It's like when Washington had that disallowed goal in Game 5, they looked absolutely defeated. Florida doesn't do that.
Right. Yeah, so that's what I'm worried. I'm not worried about matching up with them physically, and as far as the speed and the clean checks and the game in the game and the face washing bull crap and all that stuff. Like whatever, like that's Svetch showed that he can play without letting someone get under his skin. He didn't allow Tom Wilson to get under his skin last series. He didn't allow Timo Meyer and Jacob Markstrom to get under his skin in the first series. So if he needs to continue to do that, because what did we see? He's only he didn't. I don't believe he took a penalty. No, he did. He took 1 penalty in the Capital series, but it was a matching minor, and we played 4-on-4.
Yeah, and that was the only one he's taken in the whole playoffs. Actually,
is it?
I believe so, because I was looking at Natural Stat Trick when I was doing a stream last night. I'll verify that real quick, but I'm incredibly confident he's only had that 1 minor penalty.
I mean, that's huge for him. I mean, huge, because usually he does something stupid because he allows someone to get under his skin, and then he goes in the box, and then we get destroyed on the power play in years past. You got it?
I will in just a moment.
All right, just while you're looking at that, I'm going to keep going through these comments, but there's a couple more here where everybody was arguing with that Rich guy, but he's banned now. Crispy Crawfish. He says, I think the team has the right mentality. Got to beat the best to be the best. They've already beat expectations, and the special teams have remained solid when usually they've fallen off a cliff by now.
That is true. If there's one thing that's really going to help us in this series, and that's going to help Carolina in this series, it's going to be penalty killing for Carolina is not just a way that you make sure you keep a game close. It's not just 2 minutes where you're ensuring you don't get scored on. It's 2 minutes that they use to change the momentum of games. And it's been that way for years. I cannot tell you the number of times I've been watching a game not go well, and then Carolina takes a penalty and we're like, oh, here we go. And then the Canes kill it off, and they allow 1 shot attempt, no shots on goal, and generate 3 shorthanded chances. And then the dynamic of that game has changed entirely. They use it as a momentum changer. And I can't think of another team in the league that, that other NHL teams are dreaded to go out against their penalty kill as much as Carolina's. It's 2 minutes you're semi-guaranteed not to score.
Yeah. That's right. And we heard Matthew Tkachuk say it today. He, quote, nobody likes to play again, or nobody enjoys playing Carolina. That's what he said.
And I did verify Andrei Svechnikov only had that one minor penalty on May 10th. Other than that, he has not logged a single penalty minute in the playoffs. He needs to keep doing that. Between that, and I think that's part of the reason he's playing so well. He's gotten out of his own head finally. So that's one thing I'm incredibly impressed with how well he's played. He's been our best forward so far, and I did not think that I would be saying that at any point again while he was in a Hurricane sweater. And I think this puts a lot of stuff to bed about potentially trading him over the summer.
Yeah, that I don't really believe that would happen, whether he's having a great run now or not, but he is. So just adjusting here, moving forward, we're going to talk about some key players who I believe are key, and they're pretty obvious, to be honest. Players that I believe for both sides are key to success, right? So starting with Carolina, and we just feeds right into it. Our key player, number one overall, Andrei Svechnikov. Just like you said, if he continues playing and being the guy that he's been, the power forward, north-south, shoot the puck, lay the body, don't retaliate guy, there's no reason that he can't continue the streak that he's on. He's playing probably some of the best hockey of his career right now. So he's number one for me. Another key, I've got three here. Well, I've got three key players, and then I've got a fourth, well, you'll see when I get to it. Number two is Taylor Hall, because I assume, especially on home ice, I assume that line's going to draw the Marchand line. So Taylor Hall needs to be on top of his game. That whole line, really. But I look for him to drive that line and put in some very strong minutes against, the Marchand line, because if we allow that line to take over the series like they did against the Leafs, go ahead and buy the tickets to the beach.
We're cooked if that happens. And then the biggest thing that Taylor Hall, I think, brings to the table is experience.
Right.
That's the most valuable thing that the organization got by bringing him in.
And another thing about Taylor Hall, this being his first conference final appearance of his career, if there's not a more motivated dude in that locker room, something's wrong. He is going on 34 years old. He's never even come close to a cup. This is the closest he's been to a cup in his great career. So I expect him to be on top of his game. And you could say the same about Brent Burns, he's really on the 18th green of his career. But he's been to a cup final with San Jose. But this is like his last shot. Like, this year is like his last shot, assuming that, which I'm about 95% sure that he's not coming back next year. Who knows where he goes? Does he go back to San Jose? Does he go, who knows? And, I don't expect him to retire. I expect him to continue chasing the Iron Man record. So, but, I don't really see a contender signing him. So this is his last shot. And so I would expect him, I thought he had a good series against the Capitals.
I think he's been good this entire postseason, honestly. The only game that he sucked in was game 2 of the Washington series and game 3 of the Devils series. But what do those games have in common? They were the only 2 that Carolina lost.
Right. So, but he's not one of my keys. But just to touch on that real quick, just kind of branching off the Hall, the Taylor Hall discussion. And, of course, like, I could sit here and say Jacob Slavin, like, yes, he is a key to the series, but at this point, he's a given. So I'm going to branch away from Jacob Slavin, and I'm going to say Sean Walker.
I was hoping you were going to say that one.
So I think, I think Slavin's going to be Slavin, but I think if you really want to improve your chances at winning the series, if Sean Walker has a series against the Panthers like he had against the Capitals, I mean, who knows? Because that guy was like a difference maker every night. Absolutely a difference maker. So if he could continue that, I think that's a key to bolstering the blue line. It gives Rod a little more versatility should Chatfield not be able to play. You can put Walker in there and not really lose your abilities as a unit. And it gives a little bit more flexibility if you've got to play Nikishin while he gets integrated more into the system. So that's why I feel like Sean Walker is really a make or break, given the injuries and the whole landscape of the blue line. So, and then, look, Freddie's got to continue. If he, and I expect him to, he's only played 9 games. And now he's had what did we close out? Thursday night? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So 4 days, almost 5 days rest. 4.5 days rest. He should come in fresh. So those are my keys to the series. I'll recap them again. Svetch, Taylor Hall, Sean Walker, and Freddie. I'll open it up to you.
So my fourth one would be the same as yours in regards to Freddie. Third one, Sean Walker. That one, identical, because I was really glad you said him because, all this season, it's like when defensemen that play the role that Sean Walker is playing at the moment, I think that's going to change in the future for the better, how he's employed on this team. When you're not talking about a player like Sean Walker in that role, that means he's doing his job correctly. If you're not talking about him, that means he's not getting burned. He's playing good defensively. And keep in mind, this guy, this is how deep Carolina is on the penalty kill. Sean Walker's a capable penalty killer, and they don't have him out there for it normally because they don't need to. But Sean Walker's one of those guys that when you finally do notice him, you notice nothing but good things. The last 10 minutes of Game 4 were the best 10 minutes that he's played as a Hurricane. And at no point has he ever been really bad. Like, he's been probably, and I say this with all respect to Jacob Slavin, Sean Walker has been the most consistent two-way player on the blue line for the Hurricanes this entire season. And now the offense is coming because of that. When he was playing with Slavin, it was remarkably fun to watch that last 10 minutes of Game 4 against Washington. And then he went on the road with a different defensive partner, and he showed up again and consistently played the same way. Number 2, I'm going to say Sebastian Aho. I think that he's done the 200-foot stuff correctly. He's done the two-way game correctly, and he's only got 2 points to show for it. That's normally not a problem. Against Florida, though, when he has a player who plays a very similar role, Sebastian Aho was the best two-way center in the last series. Dylan Strome is not better than him.
Agree.
And it's like now if he really wants to, and maybe this is personal to him in some way, if he really wants to start taking that mantle of being one of the best two-way centers in the league, he's got to beat his own countryman, Sasha Barkov. So this is gonna be one of those times where he really needs to step up and take that extra step and put up some more points. I know he plays a defense first game. That's what he still needs to do, but he needs to add some offense on top of that. Number 1, Andrei Svechnikov. Basically everything you said is everything that I would say. And as long as, there's a time to be selfish. And if there is one player on this team that needs to be selfish, it's Andrei Svechnikov. Situations where most other players would pass, he needs to shoot. Like the series winner that he scored in Game 5. Almost any other player would have elevated that puck, and it would have went over the net. Whereas he kept it low to the ice, which was a smart cerebral play. He knew what he was doing. He didn't expect it to work, I imagine, but he knew what he was doing. When a puck's down low like that, and this is something that pure goal scorers know, when a puck is down low like that, there's a lot more visual clutter down there. So you're seeing skates, you're seeing stick blades, all kinds of stuff. It's harder for Logan Thompson to track something like that in that situation. If that puck's in the air, there's a lot less visual obstacles, and he would have seen it cleanly and either gloved it down or let it go. Yeah. Svetch knew what to do in that situation. As long as he continues to do that, because I'd rather him throw a puck on net from a bad angle than pass it. We're seeing that now, that scoring ability.
Yeah, and like we talked about last session, he's got 8 goals and 1 assist in the playoffs so far. So what does that tell you right there in and of itself?
Shoot the puck, Andre.
He's shooting the puck. That's what he's doing. So keep it up.
And he's hit 9 posts too. He very easily could have had he could have been well into double digits by now.
Absolutely. Yeah, if even half of those posts go in, we sweep them. I mean, Jarvis too. Jarvis has been hitting the flipping post left and right too.
Jarvis hit the crossbar and the post on that one shot in Game 5. Yep. And see, that's one of the things that is cool about this team. That deflates a lot of teams, not Carolina. They're like, okay, get back at it, get them with the next one. Yeah, that's one of the best things about I don't want to call it so like with the volume shooting. That's one of the advantages of it is like you don't have to think about it too much. Oh, that didn't work. Well, I'm going to get to shoot the puck again at least 3 more times in this game. Because, I mean, I imagine every Carolina player probably averages 3 to 4 shot or per player. Shot attempts are probably average of 3 or 4 for everybody. So, you're going to get another crack at it.
True. All right. Now, I wanted to go over some advantages and disadvantages. Actually, before I do, for the Panthers, right? I got some key players for the Panthers. And I guess the way I could look at this or phrase this would be players that we have to limit or shut down in order to improve our chances at winning this series. And we've touched on it over and over and over, but I really think Brad Marchand, really, they're 2 trade deadline acquisitions, Brad Marchand and Seth Jones. If you can, and really Marchand's whole line, shut those guys down, play them well, and then make sure you've got, Seth Jones on that power play is dangerous. And so our penalty kill needs to play to its identity. And I don't see why we can't. We may not finish that series at 100% like we did the Devils or whatever.
No way.
What were we like 90? I think we're like 93, 92% against.
Hold up, you froze for a second. Okay, now you're back.
I said you're not going to finish this series 100% penalty kill like you did against the Devils, or I think we were like 92, 93% against the Capitals, or higher if you don't count the 5-on-3 goal.
If you give me a second, I can actually tell you exactly what the what the penalty kill percentage was against Washington. Let's see. Yeah. Carolina was 87.3% on the penalty kill. Washington was 2 for 15. They had 1 5-on-3 goal and 1 5-on-4 goal. That was it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, take away that 5-on-3. It's much higher. So, but yeah, I think that Marchand line, I think Seth Jones, and then obviously you've got to be able to solve Bobrovsky. He's been vulnerable at points this postseason. He hasn't been. I think he's been middle of the pack, but the thing about him is, at any moment he could step up and just shut it down. So, he's one of those like bend but don't break guys. So, yeah. But anyway, moving on to some advantages and disadvantages as far as the teams go. I kind of compiled a list of what I thought each team had up on the other, and maybe what each team lacked in compared to the other. So I'm going to start with the Carolina advantages, and this is kind of what I come up with. And then you can elaborate on these, Brandon, or throw in your own. But obviously home ice is an advantage, especially, for Carolina, who has had the best home record in the NHL this year, undefeated so far in the postseason, at home, one of the best crowds. Teams are afraid to come in here and play. Well, I won't say afraid. Teams, it's intimidating. It's an intimidating atmosphere. It's an intimidating building, as far as the crowd goes and really the way the team plays here. So, however you want to define that, whether the team feeds off the crowd or, whatever it is. The fact of the matter is the team plays better than any other team when they're at home. So that's an intimidating thing for an opposing team to come in the playoffs where it's already high pressure. So, the thing is, though, that could really cancel that out is Florida doesn't really care where they play. They can win anywhere. And
they proved that in the last series.
Absolutely. They lost both games in Florida, games 1 and 2. And wait, no, that's wrong. Yeah, wait. Were games 1 and 2 in Florida? No, they weren't. They were in Toronto.
Yeah, they were in Toronto, and Toronto won both of them. But the one difference,
that's right.
The one difference between a crowd like you have at Lenovo and a crowd like you have in Toronto, you can make the Toronto crowd turn on the home team with a couple of early goals and some bad play.
True.
Lenovo, that doesn't really happen.
No, it sure doesn't. Moving on here, rest, right? Florida played last night. They finished the game. They went through an hour or so of media, packed their bags, and flew to Raleigh. Actually, I think they slept there last night and then flew to Raleigh today. So they didn't even get to go back home before they leave Toronto, and now they're here in Raleigh for 3 days. So, is that, it goes to the whole rest versus rust debate. Do you want to be rested or do you want to be in a rhythm? At this point in the season or this point in the year, I'd rather be rested. I think I'd rather be in Carolina's situation than Florida's, because they're fresh off the emotions of Game 7, less than 24 hours ago, and now they're going to wake up in the morning. They're going to probably skate. Maybe, I don't know if they'll skate tomorrow or not, and then drop the puck tomorrow night at 8:00, and it's right on to the next round.
Plus, Rod's not one to let rust build up either. He's on his toes with all that type of stuff. So that's something I don't worry about when it comes to us. If they're kind of slow when they come out for the first period, that wouldn't surprise me. But I don't see it being a consistent issue in the first game.
No, I don't either. Some more advantages here. I think special teams is an advantage for Carolina. Collectively, I don't know if the power play. I think Florida might have a better power play. But I think where the advantage lies is the fact that we have the greater potential to shut down and limit their power play than they do against ours.
Correct.
So I believe collectively special teams is an advantage to Carolina at this point. You agree with that?
Absolutely.
And then health. I know Chatty's out. I know Jankowski's out. But, I don't really consider Chatty a depth player. But, it's not Slavin. It's not Gossesbear, who runs our first power play. Chatty is a very, very good, solid shutdown defenseman. Fast. You can't really replace him. But he's not, if you look at the other side of the house, Matthew Tkachuk is definitely injured. And that's like somebody that team seriously relies on. If you look back 2 years ago, without Matthew Tkachuk, I think he scored 4 goals in that series in 4 games. He scored 4 goals in that series against Carolina 2 years ago. And I think 2 of them were like game winners. He scored that triple or quad overtime goal to win. He scored the series clincher at the end of game 4. I
think he scored in game 2 as well.
Yeah. So, if he's not 100%, he may not even be 75% at this point. He's kind of been, I won't say invisible, but he hasn't been Matthew Tkachuk so far through 2 series.
This is where the attrition factor can help Carolina out. They played a few less games than Florida has. And when it comes to Matthew Tkachuk, every chance you get, hit him.
Right.
If he's hurt and hit him, he would do it to you.
Absolutely. And we've got Ronnie over here that said, Tkachuk is injured, by the way. And then he says, hit Tkachuk a lot.
Okay, I'm going to make that T-shirt. Hit Tkachuk a lot.
I agree, Ronnie. What's up, J-Dub? He says that third line, that Marchand line, has been their bread and butter. Yeah, we've been talking about it. Lindell and Listrana with that rat have been good.
Yeah, and then the other thing to consider with that line, I know we were talking about it being something that Carolina has to mitigate or shut down. The other thing with that line, don't let them get under your skin, because even if they're not scoring, they're going to annoy you. They're
right.
Very physical. They're very fast. They go in the corners. They dig pucks out. They put greasy shots on net and go get rebounds. They defend well, and they're going to hit you every chance they get to. Like that line's going to be annoying. Even if you shut it down, they're going to try and make you, they're going to try and get penalties out of you in the process. It's
Absolutely.
Far more valuable than its scoring and puck possession ability.
Yeah. Let's see here. So now moving over to the other side of the house with Florida, I think some of their advantages are, one, experience. They've been all the way to the Cup final 2 years in a row. They know how to get it done. 2, if you want to look at our rest as being an advantage, you could look at the fact that they're in rhythm as being an advantage in some ways. I think, where did it go? And then, and then we talked a little bit about their power play. If they can figure out a way to cool our penalty kill down a little bit, and Carolina doesn't maintain that in this series, it could get out of hand pretty fast, in my opinion.
I agree.
So that's some of the advantages of Florida and just their depth. I think both teams are deep, but their deepest might be a little bit, what's the word? I guess better, higher in ways.
Yeah.
Right. I just think I think their depth, the high end, the ceiling of their deepest may outperform, maybe not the very bottom, but maybe in that middle 6.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's kind of similar to what I was saying earlier about how I don't feel like Carolina has a definitive advantage in the forward group until you start talking about the last 3 players that they would have out there on their forward depth chart. But luckily, we've got the defense, and Freddie's playing really well. And I think the biggest thing Carolina can do, even though they did this last time they played him, but the idea that Bobrovsky could do this a second time is it's pretty hard to believe that he could do it again. Go to the front of the net, screen him, take his eyesight away. No goalie is immune to blindness.
True. Real quick, Scott says Florida shut down Tampa and Toronto's power play. Yes, they did, and they're both very dangerous power plays. However, if we can shut down their power play, it doesn't matter. Play them at 5-on-5.
If it comes down to who kills more penalties and who plays better 5-on-5, that gives Carolina much better chances to win. If it becomes a track meet of power plays, then Carolina doesn't win.
Yeah, and the trend lately though has been, so far in the playoffs, you're not getting more than 2 power plays a night. The officials have been letting them play for the most part, which I like. Like if you look at last night's game, that was a game 7. The only penalty called was a too many men, which they had no choice. Toronto didn't even get a power play last night. So, the obvious, I think the most obvious penalties are all that's going to be called, or penalties that you have to call, like too many men or delay of game, puck over glass, or
anything left up to interpretation is probably not going to get called.
Right.
If you don't take a guy's hand off, there's not going to be a slashing call. If you don't draw blood, there's not going to be a high stick. If you don't break a dude's jaw with your elbow, there's not going to be an elbowing call. It has been officiated that way.
Or if a guy's going to the net on a breakaway and somebody comes behind him and trips him, then you've got to call that. Like the Dallas game. Was it the Dallas game the other night where
Scheifele did that?
Yes. So things like that are going to be called, but you're not going to see the random hook in the corner. Just
they're going to let him play.
Absolutely. So, I think to me, it's the biggest deal is the penalty kill. So if you can if you can limit their power play or shut down their power play like we have done up to this point, you've got a good shot. So, some of the disadvantages I will say for Carolina is just the potential to, underperform. So there's the potential with this team, and we know it. We've seen it year after year, that offense just dries up and they can't put anything in the net. That's always a potential. It's just facts. Our team is still led by the same core of forwards that it has been year after year. So far, they've been good. But at any moment, you just know it. At any moment, they could just all dry up. We see it in the regular season. We saw it for periods in the regular season, and it hasn't appeared in the playoffs yet. I am optimistic that it won't, but the potential's there. And I think a disadvantage for Florida is just their fatigue. So that's basically all I got. As far as advantages, disadvantages, anything you want to add to that?
No, not really. I think you pretty much covered everything that there is to be covered, and we'll have more stuff to talk about as the series goes on. But one thing I do personally believe, here's my big bellwether thing. If Carolina wins this series, they did it in 7. If it ends in 6 or less, Florida won. Now, one other thing that I will say about that, when we're talking war of attrition ability, and kind of the same thing applied to Washington. Carolina doesn't have as much of a speed advantage over Florida as they've had over the last 2 teams, but they still have a good one. And in addition to that, if you can't skate with someone, you can't hit them. If your legs are dead, you're not hitting anybody. You're not hitting anybody if you can't catch them. When the fatigue factor sets in more and more and more as the longer this series goes on, the more that favors Carolina. That's the way I see this unfolding. And I think that by game 5, and there will be a game 5, mark my words on that.
There better be.
Carolina might not win, but there will be a game 5. By game 5, you're going to have an idea of who is really starting to take advantage of that fatigue factor, whether it's the physicality or the speed doing it. I think the speed's ultimately going to be a bigger factor at that point, especially this late in the playoffs.
Yeah. I agree. So we're going to give our predictions here of how we think that the series is going to end. In the chat, go ahead and put your in the chat. Go ahead and put your predictions in. I'd like to see them. Who do you think's winning, and how many games do you think it's going? We've got somebody in the comments new over here, Beef Cat. They say, how was the Capitals' depth? Were they forced to run top lines and got tired? Yeah, pretty much. They're not as deep as Florida or Carolina.
Not even close. And that's one other thing, though, they kind of have in common with Washington. Like I said, when we were looking at the forward group, when I look at the Canes, I see a bunch of different line combinations they can use if things aren't going well. With Florida, I don't really see that. I don't see 4 or 5 different guys you can put with Sasha Barkov. I see 2 or 3. When it comes to Aho, there's 3 or 4, maybe 5 different players you could put with him to produce. But as far as like the way that Carolina beat Washington didn't have the depth to be able to make, mix up the lines like that. It when it got to where it was really falling on Ovechkin, Strome, Wilson, et cetera, they got worn down as things went on. That can happen with Florida. The problem with it is that third line is really, really good. And if the top 2 lines aren't producing, that third one can.
Yeah. All right, we got some predictions coming over here in the chat. Keep them coming. Let's go. Let me see your predictions. Pop says Canes in 7. Billy Green says, I'm guessing that's Canes in 6. I think you got beat by autocorrect there, Billy.
It beats all of us, so don't feel bad.
It happens. Christopher Howard says Florida in 6. Oh, Christopher. Hayward. Sorry, not Howard. Florida in 6. I wonder if they're a Panthers fan, or if they're a Canes fan who is just trying to be objective.
Yeah.
Billy says that's Canes in 6. Yeah, we figured. Come on, let me see your put them in the chat here. But Brandon, I'll let you start with your prediction. Oh, Christopher says he's a Florida fan.
Yeah,
Well,
at least
you know
he wasn't
what?
being like that last guy, so that's fine.
Yeah, I appreciate you jumping in here, Christopher, and hanging out and listening. You're well, I won't say your last buddy, but we had a Florida fan in here earlier. We had to boot for trolling, but I always love when we got opposing fans in here that we can interact with. So thanks for coming and being respectful. We appreciate it. Looking forward to the series.
Yeah, my buddy Devil's Join, he jumps in on all my streams all the time, and he's a really awesome dude. Now, when we play against each other in a playoff series where it's more evenly matched, eventually, him and I are gonna be entertaining.
Yeah. So Ronnie says Canes in 6. Megan says could go either way for me, to be honest. Hoping it's Canes, of course. Pop says whoever wins ECF loses Dallas in final.
It's kind of hard to argue with that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm sorry, that's hard to argue with.
Beef Cat is a Panthers fan. They say Panthers fan here, no predictions. Canes are a top team, so it won't be easy. And then Christopher says, I wonder what Toronto is going to do now.
Toronto is going to implode is what's going to happen.
I don't know if Toronto even I don't even know if Toronto knows what they're going to do now.
It's gonna be a couple of seasons before they're okay after that, because they're about to lose some pieces. Like, I still think they'll keep making the playoffs and everything, but as far as deep second round team, probably not. But they said the same stuff about us before the season started.
Yeah. All right, Brandon, let's hear your prediction of what you think for the series.
Canes in 7. That's the only way they win it too. And like I was saying earlier, if it's 6 or less, Florida probably wins. I think if it comes down to a knockdown, drag out, punch for punch, Holyfield versus Tyson type of deal, Carolina will take advantage of home ice in Game 7, and it'll be some ticky-tack, last change situation off of an icing, and they score in a second overtime. Like, they're really going to have to drag this out to win. That's what I think is going to happen.
So, I mean, look, can I really pick against the Canes? Can I really say that I believe the Panthers are going to win this in 7? I mean, I could, but I'm not going to, because I believe, and I'm even going to break it down game by game. I think it's also Canes in 7. I think we're going to win Game 1. I think we're going to win tomorrow night, just because of the rest factor and Florida coming off the emotional victory last night, and just their whole travel fiasco. I really believe Carolina opens the series with a win in Game 1. But in Game 2, I see that being our first loss at home this playoffs. So I think we go back to Florida tied 1-1. And this is where I believe Carolina will get a win on the road in Game 3 and go into Game 4 up 2-1. Florida wins Game 4. We come back to Raleigh for Game 5 tied 2-2. Then I believe it's going to go home, right? So then I believe Florida wins Game 6 in Florida, ties at 3-3. And then we come back for Game 7, where Carolina wins in regulation 4-2 with an empty net goal at the end to seal it. That's probably way off.
Well, as far as how the number of games would go and the splits like that, like the first 2 games get split and Carolina gets split and the first 2 games in Florida get split, I would say that's the second most likely scenario. I don't think you're that far off. Yeah. The one that I see in the comments here that Pops wrote, that's what I think is going to happen. And I'm expecting 7 close games.
He says he thinks the home team wins each game.
That's what I think is going to happen.
It could just, teams taking advantage of last change and, all that stuff. But having said all that, even if, I don't feel as confident in my prediction as I did against Capitals. Nobody was convincing me that we weren't beating Washington. I don't care what the media said. I don't care. I couldn't be convinced. I said Canes in 6 against the Capitals, but it ended up being 5, which is great. But you weren't convincing me that Washington was going to beat Carolina. Not so easily convinced this series, just because of the experience and the fact that they've, they've been there back-to-back years, and they really haven't gotten worse. So, is the injury factor enough to swing the series? Is the the experience, or maybe even Carolina's depth? I mean, you got rid of some perennial teammates that have been through the losses. The depth pieces anyway. If you look at Shea and Pesci, not say anything bad about them, but you replace those guys and with some dudes that have been performing well in the playoffs. I heard somebody talking today that Eric Tulsky hit home runs with every player that he brought into this system. And when I say hit home runs, I mean with the fit. The fit that each player that he brought in this past offseason was an absolute fit, like a puzzle. And that's why we're seeing the success. We didn't see that at the offseason. We didn't really see the fit and how fine-tuned it was. And now we are. And everybody compliments everybody. And I think the Taylor Hall acquisition severely underrated. I think the Logan Stankoven coming back off the Rantanen trade, just that dude, talk about a fit.
By the way, one thing I'm really looking forward to about this series, seeing Logan Stankoven and Brad Marchand play on the same sheet of ice. If you put both of them in all black sweaters and covered their faces, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart because they play that similarly. It's going to be fun to watch those guys play against each other. And to quote one of my favorite movies, Miracle, I'm not looking for the best players. I'm looking for the right ones. Sometimes, it's like Martin Necas had more, in my opinion, Martin Necas had more raw, God-given talent than anybody who ever wore a Hurricane sweater. Doesn't mean he was a good fit.
No. And if you look at it, if you look at the kind of player that Martin Necas has been for us in the playoffs, Logan Stankoven has produced just as much.
Yes.
I mean, he's got 3 goals and 5 assists, I believe. I'll pull it up right here. I've got it on my ticker. Did we already pass it? Stankoven. Oh, that 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points through 10 games. I mean, that's really all we got out of Necas in the playoffs, isn't it?
Thereabouts.
I mean, he had a good playoffs last year, better than usual, but he anyway. I don't want to get hung up on Martin Necas, but what I said all that to say this: if we win just one game, and I know this sounds desperate, but if we win just one game in the conference final, we have surpassed any other year since Rod Brind'Amour has become the head coach, because we've never won a game in the Brind'Amour era in the Eastern Conference Final. Not one. We've been there 2 other times. So win one game, you've surpassed anything. And we really didn't expect to be here. So I'm enjoying it. I'm going to live in the moment. I'm going to enjoy the ride. I'm going to cheer my ass off. And I'm going to hope. And, you never know. Maybe we can find ourselves in 2 weeks prepping for a game 3 in Raleigh of the Stanley Cup Final. So, in a quote unquote retool / bridge year while we wait for our highly touted Alexander Nikishin to come over from Russia, and we wait for all our cap space to open up, and potential to sign a really big named free agent this offseason, and so on and so forth. We didn't expect to be here. We technically didn't really even expect to be out of the second round or the first round, really, in the offseason. But here we are. And if they can make it to the Eastern Conference Final, they can make it to the Cup Final. So will this year be different? So far it has been, and I believe it to continue to be. So Brandyn,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll give you any last thoughts before we check the comments and get out of here.
So one last thing on Andrei Svechnikov. If how you were talking about Taylor Hall playing with a chip on his shoulder, someone who's going to be incredibly motivated, along with him and Brent Burns, I think the most motivated guy on this team is going to be Andrei Svechnikov. 22-23. He was having the best season he'd ever had. Then he got hurt. Now he's here this time in a situation that he would have been had he been with Carolina last time that they played Florida, he would have been a difference maker to some degree or another, playing the way he was playing up until then.
Yeah.
He's here now, and I think that he knows that him not being around kind of was, it kind of gypped the Hurricanes last time. He's here this time. And now he wants to go out there and show what we didn't get to see a couple years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, we were down Andre. We were down Max Pacioretty, who wasn't here all year, but still he was on the roster to score goals. So, those two out. Teravainen was out. So we were missing 3 top 6 forwards in that series 2 years ago.
Or if you count Kasha.
Yeah, if you want to consider him a top 6. But still found a way to get to the conference final with Mackenzie McEachern playing on Aho's wing. You remember that? That dude's not even in the league right now. So
he's in the minors, isn't he?
I believe so. But we'll get to these last comments here, and then we'll get out of here. No hockey tonight, Brandon. Sucks.
Nope. The Braves aren't playing either. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Maybe
I might have to go outside. I've actually been going outside a lot. That's why I'm kind of dark. I've been enjoying being down here.
Mighty Mike says, I felt confident against Devils and Caps, but Florida is going to be a war. Canes are more equipped to battle Florida than years past. Let's keep it going, Canes. Agree with everything you said, Mighty Mike. Pops agrees with Mighty Mike. He says that's right. Billy Green absolutely loves Stanky. So do I. I'm about to buy the jersey.
He's going to be a household name.
I love the dude. Pop says cellular bridge year.
Go to the next one. It'll make more sense.
Oops. Hell of a bridge year. Yeah, that's right. I was like, what the hell is a cellular bridge year? Oh, that's funny. Pop says you could see when Svetch really started trusting his repaired knee. Yeah. Beef Cat. This is a better Panthers team talent-wise than 2 years ago. The question is if same desire and stamina. I'll take your word for it. I would agree with that, I think. Other than one, Eric Stahl, who, I'm probably not better, but special place in my heart.
That's the biggest reason when they went to the finals that I actually cheered for Florida was because of Eric and Mark. And Tuomo Ruutu is an assistant coach on the Panthers, and all know how much I love him.
Mark was on that team too.
Mark was on that team too. Yes,
that's right. I totally forgot. That's right.
That's why I was like, you know what? If they'd won it that year, it wouldn't have hurt so much just because Eric, Mark, and Tuomo Ruutu. I've been like, you know what? I can live with that.
That's right. I totally forgot about Mark. That's right. So, but yeah, Beef Cat, I hear you there. But I would say the same with the Canes. We were a better team than 2 years ago. And what's funny is I don't think we're better than last year, at least on paper. But as far as fit goes, I think this is the best team we've had in the Brendan Moore era. Anyway, yeah, so appreciate all you Panthers fans for stopping in. We'll be doing this throughout the series every now and then. So if you guys want to subscribe, jump in, share your thoughts on the series in the chat, as long as you keep it cool and respectful. What's the word I'm looking for? Respectable. Then we will, we'll talk.
Yeah, you're more than welcome in here. Then it's just the stuff the first guy was saying that can't happen.
No. Mm-mm. All right. Well, Brandon, I appreciate you jumping on here tonight.
Absolutely.
We're missing AB, but he's picking somebody up from the airport, I guess.
Yes.
So he'll be back next time. So anyway, appreciate everybody stopping in and hanging out with us. If you're still here for the duration, we really appreciate that. Hope you enjoy it. We appreciate your comments. If you want to post stream, if you want to jump on in the comments and talk about it some more, we'll respond. And all that good stuff. Just again, like, subscribe, notification bell, share, tell somebody about us, and come hang out. So you guys know where to find us On X, you can find the podcast page at Caniac Sessions. We tweet some nonsense on there sometimes, but some of it's funny and it makes me laugh. So come and laugh too. Brandyn, I'm sure most of you that are hanging out here have seen his personal work. That's his YouTube at The Warning Take. That's one word. Or on X at The Warning Take. Tons of good content from Brandyn. Player breakdowns, series breakdowns, pregame, postgame. What is it? The Storm? What does he call it again?
Oh, so I have my two main most consistent shows. I have Landfall Hour, which is the pregame show, and Damage Report, which is the postgame show. And then I do what's known as series forecast, where I kind of look at a series as a whole, stuff like that. If you're wanting Nikishin content, there's more of it coming. I've got like 5 different things set up right now that'll be coming out in the coming days.
Yeah, I would recommend the Nikishin breakdowns. There's a good piece he did on Jacob Slavin to check out, all kinds of stuff. So check out his channel at The Warning Take on YouTube, at The Warning Take on X. Yeah, so thanks for hanging out, and we will see everybody after, maybe, I don't know if we'll do after game 1, but definitely after game 2 in session 78. So we'll see you guys then.
Bye.